I guess it should go without saying, but the parents of Aspie children need to know what's going on in their lives. You take a little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, dress him up and send him off to school, put him on the bus, walks to school, whatever. Do you know what is going on with your child when he gets to school or she gets to school? Same thing, doesn't matter how old they are, all the way up until, well, maybe into college, but at least through high school. They need, or you need to know as a parent, what your child is experiencing. Now, if you think like most parents think, you've got this thought in your mind that you're sending your kid to school and the school is run by professionals. We're talking about teachers who have a college degree, some of them advanced degrees, and they are certified. Now, if they've got a degree and they're certified and they have experience, clearly they know what's going on. They can take care of little Johnny or little Julie or whoever your child is. Now, let me clue you in on something about every single teacher who exists and ever has existed. No exceptions whatsoever. Every teacher who has ever lived on planet Earth is human. They're all people. And you know what is universal about people is they are flawed. Therefore, we draw this conclusion that every teacher is flawed. Well, every human is flawed. We all have problems. So you send your kid off to flawed people. They may or may not know how to deal with little Johnny or little Julie, or big Johnny or big Julie, depends on how old they are. That is where you, as a parent, need to step in. You need to intervene. You need to find out what is going on in your child's life because your child, are you listening? This is important. Because your child almost certainly will not tell you. And the things that happen to your children in school and other places, but the things that happen to your kids in school, particularly in those early formative years, will scar them for life. Yeah, I know there's some positive things too, but you can't just overlook the negatives because these kids can really be hurt. Statistically, I shared with you in an earlier video, but about 66%, according to a study in the United Kingdom, about 66% of children with Asperger Syndrome, well, people with Asperger Syndrome, all people, have a problem, serious problem with depression. And a lot of that, I suppose, comes from their early years experiences. And you can kind of put a stop to that. Don't wait till the damage is done to fix it, but intervene while the kid is little. That is your responsibility as a parent. And I know that some people think that teachers, schools, the education system should be a surrogate parent. Just turn the kids loose. It's their kids for now till they come home. That's not the way it works. Because what happens is, well, no, first of all, nobody can take care of that many kids. You've got a third grade teacher, and this year she may have 15, 16 kids in her class. When I was in third grade, there were 30 or 31 kids in her class. And next year, she gets a different batch, and a different batch, and a different batch. That's not possible for teachers to raise those children. It is your responsibility to raise them. Okay, so what do? Well, you find out what is going on in their lives, their school lives in particular. So we are going to tell you 5 things. The first is this. These are things that your kids probably will not tell you. Very seldom will they tell you. But number 1, they are being bullied. Now, I'm not saying that humans are primates, but I am saying this, that they act like primates. And the thing that we know about primates is this. They have a hierarchy. That you take a bunch of monkeys or gorillas, humans, if you want to call them primates, and you put them together, and what happens? Instinctively, innately, they arrange themselves in a social hierarchy. Bullying is natural, I believe. Some people don't believe that, but I think because we see it throughout the animal kingdom, bullying is natural. And if you send your little Asperger child to school, guess where he or she is going to fall on the social spectrum? It may not be the bottom. It may be next to bottom if there happens to be another kid with Asperger Syndrome in the same class. Highly unlikely, but could happen. Particularly if it's a small class. And as such, how do they get to the bottom? I mean, who gets to decide? It's a collective thing. It just happens. You've been there. You went to school, right? You know how this works. You know what it's like, maybe yourself, to be at the bottom, or you saw that kid who was at the bottom that nobody wanted to sit with in the lunchroom. That's your kid. What are you doing? Doing nothing about it. They got bullied to the bottom. Now, sometimes bullying is physical. Keep in mind, kids not going to tell you this because, well, it's bad enough being bullied, but to admit that they are flawed, and that's the way they see themselves, they're not going to do that. They're not going to go home and say, oh, guess what I learned in school today? I learned that I'm at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Aren't you proud of me? I get an F in social skills. They're not going to tell you that, and it's not going to show up on the report card. And the teacher may or may not notice it, but my experience in school, well, let me tell you this real quick. There was a girl in our class, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and nothing wrong with her whatsoever. Attractive girl, friendly, no obvious flaws. I don't think she had Asperger Syndrome, but for some reason, she was the kid that everybody wasn't supposed to like. It just wasn't cool to like this girl. I felt sorry for her. But the teachers didn't. You know, they just come in, do their job, whatever. There was one teacher. I remember there was one art teacher who one day confronted our class, and she asked the whole class, why are you picking on this girl? And that's as far as it went. As far as I know, she never talked to the parents, never talked to the principal. The teachers never talked about it. It's just something, I hate to say they don't care, because maybe they do, but in your school, but in our school, they just didn't care. Just something that happens, I guess, in every class. There's always somebody at the bottom, and that's the way life works. They're doing their job, they get the paycheck, they go home, and do whatever they do at home. End of the school day. Now, I got to tell you, when I was growing up in school, I didn't experience very much physical bullying. In fact, probably less than the average boy, because, you know, boys fight. That's what they do. They call it roughhousing or horseplay, whatever. So the other kids who were socially active probably took more of a beating than I did from other kids because, well, they kind of had fun doing it. I was just kind of invisible. So kids aren't going to tell you. You need to talk to the teachers, and you may need to talk to the kids themselves, but watch for the signs of bullying, and that is they tend to withdraw. They are not very attached to other children because they are afraid to be. Number 2, they need help in school, academically. They're not going to tell you that. Now, I got to remind you, and you probably already know this, but a lot of kids with Asperger Syndrome excel academically in school. Typically, children with Asperger Syndrome either have average intelligence, average IQ, or they have superior intelligence, superior IQ. They can do the work. But here's what happens. Kids with Asperger Syndrome imagine themselves, and we mentioned this in a previous video, but it's not really imagination, but they perceive. This is the way they see the world. This is the way they perceive it. Is they're in a movie, and everyone around them is acting. It's a three-dimensional movie, but they're watching life as if they were watching a movie. They're just not part of it. They're just watching what goes on. And what is going on in school is kids are learning, and they're taking tests, and they're studying. But they're not a part of that, so they don't do it. They just watch everyone else. That may be your child. And if your child is coming home from school and it doesn't seem that they're getting the grades that you think they should. And you know from observing your children, they're not stupid. You can see that by the fact that they figure things out on their own. You know that. So you're wondering, what can you do about it? Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge it. And second of all, you need to go talk to the school. Not as easy as you think it is. But because, again, I mentioned this earlier, and I don't mean to trash talk teachers because there's some excellent teachers out there, but a lot of times they either don't care or they're so overloaded that they can't care. They have too many kids, they can't take care of every single one of them. And by the way, ultimately, it is the parent's responsibility. So you may have to even work with a kid at home. Help them with math, help them with spelling, help them with reading and whatever. Somehow, some way, you got to take the time to do that. You got kids, got to take care of them. I don't know. I just don't know. When I was a kid, I somehow managed to pass all my grades. Kindergarten, okay, that was a breeze, but, you know, after kindergarten through 8th grade, I pretty much just sat in school and didn't pay attention. I daydreamed. You know, I'd stare out the window. I had no idea what was going on until the teacher, you know, might call my name or something, then I'm in the movie now. I have no idea how I passed all of those grades. Seems to me they would have held me back. In fact, I think it was in the third grade, maybe fourth, that they actually held back about a third of my class. And somehow I got in the top two-thirds of it. I don't know where it was, but they passed me to the next grade. I don't know how I did that. And I was talking to a psychologist about that one time, and he said, Ken, the reason they passed you is because at the end of the year, even though you think you weren't paying attention, at the end of the year, they give a test. You know, they give the I forget what they call it, but they give a test every year. And if you pass the test, you get passed to the next grade level. And so apparently, even though I wasn't paying attention, enough of it absorbed my little brain that I was able to do the math and I was able to do the reading and, you know, all the other stuff they do in school, spelling, whatever. And I was good enough that they moved me up to the next level all through school. Have no idea how I did that, but it was sometimes a struggle for me. Actually, it wasn't much of a struggle because I didn't try. But if I had tried, I don't know, maybe I would have done well, whatever. But your kids need help in school unless they are particularly one of those Asperger kids who gets it and studies and gets the grades. But a lot of Asperger kids, I know a lot of them do that, but a lot of them don't do that. Okay, let's take a look here. Number 3. Here's something that your kids will not tell you because, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. But your child will not tell you that he or she cannot catch a ball. That's embarrassing. Particularly in Indiana, where basketball is the state religion. You go to any big city anywhere in the USA, and what you will see are 2 temples, 2 cathedrals. One of them, 2 biggest buildings in the city. One of them is a bank, and the other is a sports stadium. Those are the 2 major religions in the United States of America, and I think around the entire world. That's what we worship. In Indiana, state religion is basketball, state bird is Larry. Mississippi, I think it's football, but that's kind of embarrassing when you can't play basketball in a state that is known for basketball. I'm not going to tell anybody that. I mean, it's kind of obvious. I mean, I got to tell you, in all honesty, I can dribble a basketball. And I like to play. I can run. Pretty good at running, not fast, but I can run. My problem is I just can't seem to do them both at the same time. And that is so typical with kids with Asperger Syndrome. They're not coordinated. A lot of kids with Asperger's are not strong. They have small bones. They have small muscles. Maybe they're, I should say, thin bones, thin muscles. They're just not very strong. They're not athletic. And what's more is they just don't get it. Eye-hand coordination. You know, the brains of the average typical kid works very well. Kids with Asperger Syndrome, you throw the ball, they reach their hand up to catch it. But you see, you're supposed to reach your hand up before the ball hits your face. We don't always, I mean, we know that, but we don't always get it. I can't remember in junior high, now they call it middle school, I can't remember ever getting past first base. I could hit the ball, but the only reason I got to first base is because there was somebody, you know, ahead of me getting to third or fourth, or not fourth, but home base, and they needed to get him out. So I got to first base, but I never got to second base. In softball, I'm talking about. Number 3 or number 4 is this. Now, maybe your kids do tell you this because I made my mother very well aware of my experience. And that is something you need to know about your kids is they itch. The clothes scratch them. Now, when I was little, we were Baptist, and we went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and once in the middle of the week, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, don't remember. But every Sunday, my mom would dress me up in a white shirt. Felt like sandpaper. In fact, I think it could have been used for sandpaper, at least from my experience. It was the scratchiest thing, and then you had to button the top button, and then you had to put on that stupid clip-on tie, which, you know, all the other boys pulled them off each other. And you put on these black pants, were just as scratchy, just as itchy, and off to church you would go. Now, back then, we didn't have air conditioning. Didn't have it in our car. Didn't have it in the church. And you get in the car with the big sisters, and they had their hair done. And they're not going to roll down the window because their hair's done. Don't have air conditioner. So, you dressed in sandpaper. It's 80, 90 degrees outside. and off you go to church. Scratchy, itchy. The one thing I thought about the whole time I was sitting in church is, I want to get home and put on my normal clothes, because this is itchy. And all the boys were dressed like that. And I could not understand for the life of me why it didn't bother them. Why doesn't it bother them? It didn't seem to. We were all, we were Baptists, but we were dressed like little Mormons with our white shirt and dark ties. Couldn't wait to get home. Your kid's probably experiencing that if he has or she has Asperger Syndrome. Now, maybe they will tell you. That's one thing they may tell you. Because, I told my mom, I don't like wearing these clothes. My mom said, put on your clothes. What kind of family we had. Okay, so number 4 is they itch. Now, number 5, I think, is the most important of all of them. And that is something that your kids are not going to tell you, particularly when they get past puberty, when they are adolescents. I almost said when they're intellectuals, okay, when they're adolescents. Maybe they are adolescents who are intellectuals. And that is, number 5, is they are depressed. And they may not even know what depression is. They may be experiencing depression, and they just, the world stinks. They don't know why they're thinking that way, but from their perspective, that is the real world. It just stinks. That's the way it is. I can recall, I think I was maybe, 16, 17 years old when I had a severe depression episode. And I just wanted to get away from people. I recall it very, very vividly. My parents went to the state fair with another family from church, and I fell in this dark funk. I didn't know I was depressed. I didn't know what it was. So I just went out, sat in the car, and felt bad. My parents had no idea. They didn't know why I went out in the car. I didn't like state fairs anyhow, but they had no idea. So if your child is, and I'm not saying depression starts at adolescence, it could start earlier, but if your child is an adolescent in particular, you need to find out whether or not they are experiencing depression. That's the time to intervene. And again, child, even teenagers, yep, they're your responsibility. And you don't want to kick them out of the house with that kind of a problem. Grow up, go to college. If it's not dealt with, they're still depressed. So they may not talk to you about it because, number 1, they may not even know they're depressed. They may just think the world stinks. Number 2, if they do know they're depressed, they may not want to talk about it because it's like saying I can't catch a ball. It's like saying I'm being bullied. It's like saying I have this flaw on top of all these other flaws I have, and I don't want to admit to myself because they're thinking that they're not saying this, but they are in denial. They're not going to talk about it. You got to be the one who brings it up. Now, on the screen, what you see are 2 rectangle boxes. This conversation between you and me, it doesn't end here. It ends when you say it ends. So if you want to keep talking, keep listening, click on one of those boxes because we got a lot more to talk about. And if not, well, we'll see you next time.